Hey, what's up guys? Tyler here with Secure Team. Well, today I have something special for you. And, you know, I always get the question, what was it that made you become a UFO researcher? What made you become someone who was fascinated with the subject of the unknown, or hopelessly inquisitive, as I like to call it? And I find that everyone usually has a specific video or story or case or something that gets them interested in UFOs and aliens in the first place. So today, I have a video for you guys to watch. It's a presentation, actually, and is the very first video that I ever watched that got me interested in this topic. And to this day, is one of the most fascinating presentations by a UFO researcher you'll likely ever see. This guy is what got me into it all, and his name is Alex Collier. Many of you have probably heard of him, but I'm sure many of you haven't. Now, a few things about Alex. Alex claims to be a contactee with a race of Nordic-looking aliens from the constellation Andromeda. He says that he has had a number of contact experiences since his childhood, and this has developed over the years, and he has been given all of this information that he's about to present here from these alien contacts. And he has also revealed that he has been the recipient of threats from shadow government agencies and was the reason why he abruptly chose to stop disseminating his information in the year 2000. So, as I said, this is a video that got me into this whole thing, and if you guys are fascinated by the moon and all of the anomalous structures on it, he gives a whole presentation where he shows you image after image after image, talks about the Milky Way, other bodies in the solar system. It's mind-blowing, and I assure you that you will not be sorry you watched it. Alex, he's just one of the most interesting men in this field, and hopefully I will be able to get him on the channel here soon for an interview. I know he doesn't do too many, so that'll be a real treat. So without further ado, sit back, grab some popcorn, and enjoy.
I want to just give you a brief background on how this all started for me. I grew up, for the most part, in Elk Grove Village, Illinois, and my grandparents had a cabin up in Woodstock, Michigan, which is in northern Michigan. And we were up there in August of 1964, and I experienced missing time. We had gone out to play into the fields, and I laid down in the tall grass, and I can remember throwing chestnuts out of the way to create a place for myself to lay. And when I fell asleep, and when I woke up, it was almost going on 9 o'clock. And I remember getting up and running back to the picnic area where the family was, and there was a police dog, a Michigan State police car there, and my folks and cousins, because it was kind of a family thing because everybody goes back to school. And I got the tar licked out of me for disappearing, and I told them where I had been, and they didn't believe me, so I took them back to where I was with the flashlights, and sure enough, there was my body imprint, and they swore they had been all through that area looking for me. It wasn't until age 14 that I actually understood what had happened then. I went to bed. It was just a normal night. It was in October. When I woke up, and there were two men looking down at me, and they were human beings, except they have no hair, and their skin is light blue, or at least Morine, the very large one. His skin is light blue. Theseus is the elderly one, and I'll give you a brief background on them. Has turned white because of his age, but they are blue-skinned. They say that they are our cousins, and that we actually have some of their genetics inside of us. They originally came from Lyra, as all human life did in our galaxy. Human life does exist in other galaxies as well. And there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. Okay. I was taken out of bed many times. I was given information, I was given physicals, I was given brain scans, I was shown, they put a little cap on my head and they showed me who I was in past lives and my direct connection to them and my connection to the earth. And And then there were no more contacts after age 14. There was one at 16, but it was a physical. I was not awakened. It wasn't until 1985 that the contacts started again on a regular basis. Sorry about that. Okay. Now, just to give you an idea of where I was in 1985, I had worked for a few years for the Internal Revenue Service. I had been a tax collector, and I was assigned to and I'm ashamed to say it, but I was a good tax collector. And for the lady and the people who were talking about the IRS, I'm just going to give you this while it's hot and it's fresh. I was assigned to a task force that was supposed to do undercover work for oil company fraud. And our training was to be in Washington, D.C., and while I was there, I used my security pass to get into the National Archives. And you're not allowed to really make copies of things when you're in the National Archives unless your security clearances was much higher than what mine was. And I'm going to tell you this as having been with the Internal Revenue Service. The Internal Revenue Service is a Puerto Rican trust. It is a 3-tier trust. I don't know what the third tier is, which is the bottom line, but it's Internal Revenue Service, Puerto Rican Trust, Trust number 62, and I can't tell you what the third one is because it wasn't there.
I have that information.
Great. People need to know. Also, none of the federal income tax laws are actually in the Federal Register, therefore they are not laws. They are codes. You also need to be aware of that. Anyway, I left the Internal Revenue Service and I opened up my own accounting practice. I started helping people with IRS collection problems because that's not something that you can learn going to tax school or going to a university. You have to have on-the-job training. Well, I started my practice, took the CPA exam. For 5 years, I had a practice in Beverly Hills and Malibu. I was living on a 700-acre horse ranch in Malibu at the time the contacts restarted. Now, within 2 months of the contacts restarting, I totally walked away from my tax practice. And I just realized that a lot of it was just BS. And it just wasn't working for me. I had made some major shifts in a very short time. The contacts have been relatively continuous. They're both physical as well as telepathic. And folks, some of this information is going to be enlightening. Some of it's going to really bother you. And I'm sorry to be the one to have to tell you that we have a very serious problem on our hands. Okay? And it is just not the federal government. It just is not. There is a much bigger scheme going on here. And it involves extraterrestrials who are interested in us as souls. You might refer to the Bible, you might refer to whatever texts or religion you have, but there definitely is a battle of good and evil going on out there, and part of it has to do with us and our solar system because of its location and the minerals that are here. The regressives, and we're going to talk a little bit about that after I show you the moon pictures, don't give a damn about us. We are a natural resource. Okay? Be really clear when I say this. We are a natural resource to them. They don't care who you are inside. They don't care. Your eyes to seeing some of this. Some of the things you will not have any trouble whatsoever. These photographs, I was told specifically where to look, were taken by the Lunar Orbiter 4 from August of 1966 to August of 1967. They show so much. I mean, if you know what you're looking for, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. You know, and there's no way our astronauts missed this stuff. There's just no way. You know, 21-mile bridges, 7-mile monuments, ships sitting in the middle of craters. I mean, you know, you're going to see it. Okay? I'll tell you what the Andromedans, Morane and Passeus have said about the moon. And I want to take questions, so I want to get through this. They have said that our moon is an artificial satellite. In fact, it is a spacecraft. Much of the debris on the surface was put there and was built purposely to make it look like what it isn't. Okay, it is hollow, it is metal underneath it, and it has the ability to leave our orbit under its own power. They say it came from Ursa Minor, from a solar system that would have the symbol, or would have the name in our language of Chauta. It was one of 4 moons that rotated around the 17th planet. Now, it was built. This sounds just like Star Wars. It was built around that 17th planet. It was then put into the tail of a comet and then dragged here. And when it got to this area, it removed itself, and the first place it parked itself in our solar system was the planet that we now know of as Maldek, which is the asteroid belt. It was one of 2 moons that belonged there. Maldek was the first inhabited planet in our solar system. It was very much like Earth. Mars and our planet were terraformed from Maldek, or Malona, or whatever name you want to call it. It was terraformed. In other words, all the plant life and everything that is on the surface and animal life was brought here. It was brought here. You know, science tells us that, everything started with a single cell. The Andromedans laughed at that. And Phaseus said to me, well, if that's true, then how does that one cell know to become a brain cell and a kidney cell? I couldn't answer him, because I don't know. He says it isn't possible. Our solar system has been engineered, built and engineered. Okay? The whole solar system. We're going to get into some more of that, but I want to get going on the slides. Honey, you want to come up and help us with that? Let's see. Okay, according to the Andromedans, now folks, I just want you to keep an open mind. I'm not asking you to believe this. I'm sharing information with you. If you choose not to believe it, hey, that's fine. I ask you to exercise your free will. And if this gets too much for you and you don't want to listen, I've already checked. None of these chairs have seat belts. You can absolutely leave. I will not be offended. I don't like doing this anyway. I would much rather stay home and raise a family. Okay, but I made a promise, and, we want to have a family, and, I have pieces of the puzzle, and if I don't do anything about it, then I'm just as guilty as the NSA astronauts and the Russian astronauts that have been on the moon and been on Mars since 1958. Okay. Lights, please. Turn it on. The light. There we go. Okay. Our galaxy. Can we raise it up? No, we need something, a videotape or something to put underneath it.
I'm the handiest guy I know.
That's it. That's it. Thank you very much. Okay, we can lower that. No, here.
Wait a minute. I got it.
Here. Okay. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, according to the Andromedans, space travel has existed in our galaxy for 4.4 billion years. Okay, we are literally the new kids on the block. All right? Now, what's interesting about our galaxy is... All right. Space travel has existed for 4.4 billion years. The interesting thing about our galaxy is the fact that we have many different races living here. In particular, the human race, which we are a member of, and what we call the reptilian races, which we are not a part of, but who very much don't like us, like the human race. Apparently this battle that's been going on has been going on for approximately 3.8 billion years between reptilian races and human races. Many of the races that exist in our galaxy migrated originally from Lyra during a war. Apparently, sometime in our ancient past, a group of reptilians were exploring, looking for minerals, looking for food resources. They came across a star system that was full of human beings who were agricultural in their nature. Abundant food, they just had everything together. And the reptilian races, they're called the Seekar. In the Andromedan tongue, we know them, or we would know them as being known as the Draconans, because they're from Alpha Draconis. And apparently they as a race were brought to our galaxy fully formed. Nobody knows where they came from or who dumped them there. But they were put there because it gave them the highest probability of survival. Well, they're a remarkable race. They're incredible builders, but they have an attitude problem. And that is that they believe that they are the dominant species and they control everything else. And they are also master geneticists. They value genetics, not gold or silver. They have no interest in that. It's life forms. And they try to control life forms through manipulating their genetics. We have also been subject to that. I'm going to try to cover a lot here. Anyway, there was a war. They were attacked. Many of the human races fled to Antares, to the Pleiades, to Cygnus Alpha, to Andromeda, to Cassiopeia, to Sirius, to Procreon, all over. They just scattered to the winds, trying to survive. Next slide, please. This is where our small little area is located. That which we see in the sky, this is where it's located. As you can see, we are in the sticks, the boonies. We really are. And this is why we've been manipulated and messed with so much as a planet and as a race. Because we have been, for the most part, we were, for the most part, considered insignificant. And then roughly 5,000 years ago, somehow they found out that we were no longer insignificant, and I will tell you why. According to the Andromedans, in our physical form right now, in our genetics, we have within us the DNA of 22 different extraterrestrial races who have come down here and manipulated, who have bred with us, who have tinkered with us, everything imaginable. And that somehow we have all this inside of us. I don't think so. If you can get your hands on the book, there's a color photograph. This is a photograph from the book. It is, folks, it's there. Whoops, there it is. It's there. Next slide, please. Okay, our moon. Our moon is quite the enigma. Apparently our moon was brought here 11,213 years ago, to be exact, in the month of March, that we know is the month of March. It came here as a base, okay, as a ship carrying ETs. They were coming here to colonize. They did, in fact, colonize. In fact, many of what's left of them are living underground in our planet from 100 miles to 200 miles beneath the surface. Now, I've gotten a lot of crap for talking about this, but I'm just not going to shut up. The beings that brought this satellite here to our planet in the last 25 years are responsible for over 31,000 children disappearing from the surface. And I don't know if you're paying attention, but over 100,000 children a year are vanishing from the face of the earth. And folks, they're being taken out of here. And the governments know. The world governments know. All right? And we're going to cover that. We're going to cover that. Next slide, please. Okay, did our astronauts really go there? I know that there's been a lot of talk that maybe they didn't go there because of anomalies and a lot of talk that maybe they didn't go there because of anomalies and pictures. Many of the pictures were faked because the pictures that the astronauts took, there was stuff all over the place. They couldn't hide it. Yes, they did go. But yes, there's been a manipulation of other things put in there that supposedly looks like our astronauts. So, we have to use common sense when we look at these things. The next slide, please. Did our astronauts see things? Absolutely. Mornay has told me that the United States government, just our government, has at least 53 of its own UFOs, flying saucers, that are stationed on the moon, on the far side. And I'm going to show you where he says they are. It's in one of the slides. They did, but they were told to shut up, not say anything. Many astronomers who have been taking a look at the moon, many of the lunar rovers and the cars that they drove have disappeared. They're no longer there. You know, well, they just didn't get up and float away. Okay, the moon has got gravity. Especially on the far side, it's got gravity. Mornay has told me that if you take Copernicus crater and you stood at the bottom, that the gravity is equal to that of Chicago. As if you were standing in Chicago. Because again, it is not the rotation. It is apparently the sunlight. The sun's radiation that creates gravity. This is what they say. Now, our moon does not turn on its axis. It rotates around the Earth, but we primarily just see one side, or only 59% of it. By the way, our moon's the only one that does that. You know, it's the only one. Next slide, please. Okay, this was taken out of National Geographic. This was in the early 1950s. This was NASA's idea of what moon bases would look like. They, in fact, did do this and create this in February of 1958. So when Kennedy said, you know, we are going to send man to the moon, part of our government, primarily the NSA, was already there. They were already there. Now, folks, you don't hear much about the Russian space program, but let me tell you something. They are a major player, and they are also here. And they don't work for us. Neither does the NSA. They work for international bankers who are the new priesthoods for extraterrestrials. And we're going to cover that. Next slide, please. Okay. According to the Andromedans, there were primarily 9 huge dome cities on the moon, the front and the back. They housed up to 5 million extraterrestrials at one time. There was water, there was vegetation, there was everything they needed. Okay, and these covered hundreds of miles. You know, so when Richard shows you the pictures of the things, you know, the shards, so many miles tall, 9, 10, 15 miles, whatever it is, he's right. He's absolutely right. You know, but there's more. There's more. Okay, next slide. Okay, this is along the equator on the far side of the moon. This is what's left of a pyramid. There are 4 pyramids on the moon. Excuse me. Okay, now I can assure you that the pharaohs, just to practice, did not take the Hebrew or the ivory up here, build one, then bring it back and do it right in Egypt. Didn't happen. According to the Andromedans, almost all the planets in our solar system have pyramids on it. Some have more. I've asked why. Some people say they're tombs. The Andromedan perspective is that these are weights. And what they do is you put them in a strategic location, it balances the rotation of the planet. It doesn't keep it from wobbling, which means that if the ETs are there colonizing, there's no major fluctuations in weather and gravity. Gravity anomalies as well as the electromagnetic field, which is around every single planet. It has to be balanced. That's what these are for. That's why Giza is directly dead center of the landmass on planet Earth. Next slide, please. Okay, can we just focus this a little tiny bit? Okay, folks, I want you to focus on this area right here. I want you to focus on this structure in here. For those of you who are architects, please feel free to, say something about this. This area right here, you can see the curves, the angles. There's another bridge here. I want you to notice these lit up objects inside the bottom of the crater. We've got a close-up of it. Next slide, please. Here we go. Okay, here's another bridge. Apparently this is inhabited by extraterrestrials from Orion. These are, I'm told, are domes. Does everybody see this? Okay. I'm also told that this is a road that goes into here. There's an elevator that goes up to this area here. And when they land, they take an elevator or something down, and then they can walk, because there's atmosphere on the far side of the moon. Which is why the astronauts took pictures of clouds. You know, I mean, it's unbelievable. You know, the snow job that we've been given. It's nothing what we've been told it is. Nothing. Right. Next slide, please. Okay, I want you to focus on this. Let me just turn off one. I want you to focus on this area right here. Now, I realize this might be difficult, but I do have a close-up. This is a crater, and there is a structure that comes across it. You can see the sun coming through this way. You can see it shining right here underneath, and you can see this is still in the shade. This structure here. This is a 21-mile long bridge. Next slide, please. Here. I'm always updating. I'm always trying to get clearer pictures. This is 21 miles. Now, you may not see it. You may have to adjust your eyes. I know this isn't easy, but this is it right here. Okay? You can see the sun shining through here. Now, we didn't build this. And how is it that our astronauts missed this? 21 miles. That's from here to almost to Boulder. Next slide. Okay. Look at this. Just sitting there parked. This was taken by the Lunar Orbiter in 1966. Next slide. Now, isn't it interesting that we're told that the craters were created by meteorite impact or incessant meteorite bombardment? I just love that. Okay? And yet, you have full-fledged mountains in the dead center of these craters. Many of them are even higher than the crater walls. Folks, that's just not possible. It is not possible. You have craters that are 30 to 40 miles in diameter. The deepest one is only 7,000 feet. That is also an absolute impossibility. Richard talks about his dome structures, okay, that had some kind of a glass on it. Right here. I believe, and I'm told that this is what's left of one of Richard's domes, that he has a picture of them, you know, with the long shards and the pieces hanging off. This is what's left of it. As you can see, there's a shiny spot of the glass tickered in, but that's what this is right here. This apparently also was a domed city, but it was destroyed by particle beam weapons between what we now know as the Orion group and a group from the Pleiades. This happened approximately 9,600 years ago. Full-out war here. Next slide, please. Okay. I want you to just check out this area here. All these structures. Look at these. Apparently these are hangars. This is a complex that is inhabited by human beings from Earth. Also want you to look at this object. I'm trying to get a better picture of what this large structure is. But what's really interesting about this area here and this is look at nice how sharp this crater is. The corners here. Very nice and sharp. Here. Very nice and sharp. Next slide. This is, I just wanted to show you this structure here. This is absolutely not supposed to be there, and apparently it is the ruins of a ship that was destroyed 9,600 years ago. Next slide. Piece of shard. It's 2 miles. 2 miles tall.
Piece of what?
Shard. Piece of metal. Next slide, please. Okay. On this photograph, I want you to just take in the landscape. Okay? I want you to take in the landscape of what you see here. Now, I want you to focus in on this area right here. I want you to look at this area here, and I want you to compare it to the rest of the landscape. Just focus your eyes for a minute. Okay? I want you to focus on this area, and then the rest of the landscape. What's unusual about this area right here? Anything else? Maybe the way these things are all lined up together, nice and neat, and then these structures right back here. Next slide. Okay, here's another picture of it. Okay. Oh.
Is that a monument there, the dark shadow?
This here? No, that's an arrow. That's my arrow. Okay. This area here, I have been told by the CHAINE and Mornay both, is a base that was built by the United States, the Russians, and the British with the help of bankers, using technology that was given to this elite, this ruling family, by the Greys in 1954. They've been up here a long time, and this is actually considered a resort. This is not Club Med. Next slide. More ruins down here. Here and in here. These are not supposed to be here. These are pieces of spacecraft apparently that were destroyed 9,600 years ago in a war that took place in our solar system. Next slide, please. Okay, this is the same structures I showed you earlier. Here's some more ruins. Now I want you to look at this area right here. This apparently is what's left of a dome, one of the dome structures. And these pieces that you have on the inside are pieces of the roof that just fell to the floor of the dome. You can look, you can see it, you can see there's a circumference. Here's part of the wall that's fallen down this way, okay, and here is part of the dome that is still intact. If we go to the next slide, you might see a little better, but we'll have to focus it right here. Well, maybe not. Okay, this was also destroyed in that war 9,600 years ago. Next slide, please. And if you can see this, this is very light. This is a piece of a bridge that crossed this crater where half of it's gone and half of it is just still standing there. I don't know exactly how many miles across this is. But again, how did our astronauts miss this? Next slide, please. Okay, these are more ruins. I myself have even had trouble seeing some of the things in this, but they've been very strong about this particular area, so I felt it was important to include it and just share it with you because maybe somebody in here will see something more than what I see. You know, people often do, so I'm just trying to share it. These structures here, it's a weird place. Again, this is along the equator on the far side of the moon.
A lot of those craters have a rising piece in the middle.
Yes, sir, they do. Yes, sir, they do. And, you know, some of them are full-fledged mountains, and they're just not supposed to be there. Next slide, please. Okay, now, look at this. Okay. Honey, is that the best we can focus on? Okay, thanks. This area here apparently is a domed complex inside this crater, and I'm told that the world government picked this area because there's water underneath it. These are domes. These are a series of domes that are lit up from the inside.
Is that square thing the pyramid?
Which thing? This? This here? I don't know exactly what that is. It's not discernible in the pictures. You know, I think sometimes they purposely blur these just a little bit. Next slide, please. Here's another area in another crater. This is all lit up from the inside. Next slide. This structure here. This piece, this thing here, this length of object, whatever it is 13 miles. And it's just sticking up outside, out of the crater. Next slide, please. Okay. Now, I want you to look at this area right here. Everybody see this area? Is that a yes? Okay. How many of you have been to the Sears Tower in Chicago? You ever been to the top? It's about a mile high, right? That's what they say. It's about a mile high. Next slide. Here it is again. Now, I want you to know these photographs were taken from this particular photograph was taken by the lunar orbiter at 86,000 feet. Okay? According to Mornay, this is 7 miles high. And it's a monument to one of the old ETs. Next slide. Here's a close-up of it. Your suspicions are pretty accurate. Back up just one more time. Okay. Now let's look. Now just look at the rest of the terrain here. Okay. Look at the rest of the terrain and just look at how this sticks out. 7 miles. How come our astronauts missed it? I mean, I hate to be redundant, but I'm just hoping somebody will have the answer. Next slide. Oh, we did that. Okay. One more time. Okay. This particular area, I'm told, is now being reactivated. They say, Mornay and Passaic have said that all of this are ruins and that there are underground facilities all through this area. And I just wanted to share it with you because they're very strong about this particular area. And this is a dome that is apparently that was still left intact. Next slide. Square craters. Now I've asked Mornay specifically, and he said there's no such thing as a square meteor. So, just one of them weird things. Next slide, please. Okay, craft sitting here, hanging over a crater. Next slide. These are all taken by the lunar orbiter. Weird crossed objects sitting in the middle of craters, dead center. Next slide. This was the photographer. Let's go one more slide. Okay, back up. Thank you. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, somebody else, I think George Leonard wrote this, somebody else is on the moon.
George Leonard, yeah.
George Leonard. Somebody else is absolutely living on the moon. I am told that there are 35,000 full-time human beings from Earth living on the moon. And they are Aryans by birth. Now let me just say that one more time. They are Aryans. Now let me just say that one more time. They are Aryans by birth. They are Aryans by birth. You're going to have to research them because if I come right out and say it, I'll get in deep trouble. Okay, Aryans by birth.
They're not.
They're also there with extraterrestrials. Between the moon and our Earth, there are 18,000 grays here. There are only apparently 2,000 real grays left. All the rest are clones. They're robots. They're organic robots, and microprocessors are grown in their head, and they are controlled by some kind of a radio frequency. Now, the Greys and the Orions also have this technology to absolutely replicate and duplicate a human being. And for those of you who are familiar with the old Dr. Beater stuff, before he was killed in a parking lot in Dallas, I would suggest you go back and re-research that information. Except he was told the Russians were doing it, and they're not doing it. It's extraterrestrials who are doing it, who are trying to undermine the free will of those of us on the surface of the planet. Because this is our home. Okay, Mars. I'm still working on more information, but I'm going to show you a couple things and share things that I've been told about Mars. The first thing I want to share with you about Mars is that, again, everything we've been told about it is wrong. Mars' atmosphere is full of oxygen and ozone. In fact, the local San Diego paper on March 23rd of 1995 flat out said that in 1971 they had discovered it was full of ozone. Well, folks, you go to the library and you pull out any book that you can find on Mars written by any scientist on this planet, and they don't say virtually anything about ozone. But it's there. We're told that that its actual gravity is about 1%. Well, if the atmosphere is so feeble, then how is it that it can have 300-mile-an-hour wind storms? If the atmosphere is so feeble, how is it that it can hold water at both poles? Next slide. Let's go next slide. I'm sorry. At both poles. And there's water at both poles. This is water, H2O. We're told that the Martian atmosphere never gets above 129 degrees below zero. And yet, this past February or March, you had a picture from the Hubble telescope of Mars and the North Polar Cap melting. Now, I'm not a scientist, but tell me, how does water melt at 129 degrees below zero? I'm open. I'm open. Okay, apparently Mars has been inhabited off and on as a base, as a small colony, as a staging point for extraterrestrials who are exploring and leaving our galaxy to go to another for 3.8 billion years. The ruins that Richard shows and other people, they're tombs. This is what I'm told, that they're tombs. And that there's far more there than's being shown. Most of it's been buried. Because during a war previous 69 million years ago, Mars was almost exactly like Earth. In fact, Mornay has said that many of the animal life that was on Mars is on Earth. That when we get there, when we as a race get there, publicly get there, we will find that there were dinosaurs. Many of the exact same animals and mammals and reptiles were on both our